Hi everyone, good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you.
Catherine and Archie had been married for more than 6 years, and everything was fine with them, but there was only one thing they lacked for happiness. Without it, they considered themselves an incomplete family. All these 6 years they could not manage to have children. To be honest, the newlyweds were already thinking about doing IVF, even put aside money for this procedure. The guys were fully prepared for the birth of a child, mentally, physically, and financially. That day, the couple decided that it was time to make an appointment with a reproductologist for hormonal therapy and appointment of the IVF date. Catherine called the clinic, and it turned out that they could make an appointment only for the next month. They did not want to lose time, so they agreed. After that, Archie invited his wife to a restaurant to celebrate the beginning of their long-awaited journey. It was a posh establishment, cooked in which the best chef. The spouses received a colossal pleasure from dishes and drinks and went home in a good mood. Catherine went to shower, and Archie, meanwhile, decided to brew coffee. After 15 minutes, the aroma of the drink spread throughout the apartment, and the girl came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, and on her head was a turban. As soon as Catherine crossed the threshold of the kitchen, her well-being deteriorated sharply. There was a lump in her throat, her mouth increased salivation, and before she could even orient herself, she was vomiting. Archie frantically circled around his wife, trying to figure out how he could help her. However, the nausea from Catherine did not recede. The girl had already moved to the toilet, where she spent at least half an hour. All this time, Archie in his head blamed this restaurant. But how can this be? So many positive reviews, and not a single negative one. From the taste of the food, it was clear that all the food was fresh, and the drinks were good. Strange and incomprehensible. As soon as Catherine came out of the restroom, her spouse ran up to her and offered to call a medical emergency. The man was convinced that Catherine needed a gastric lavage. Most of all, he was afraid that it would happen again at night, and he would not even hear it. The girl refused it, promised that everything would be fine, and went to bed. Indeed, everything happened just as Catherine had said it would. All night she slept soundly, not waking up once. Her body was also at rest, gaining strength before the upcoming workday. The alarm clock rang, as usual, at 6:00 a.m. Catherine woke Archie with a kiss and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Today, she wanted some kind of warm chicken sandwiches. For that, she coated the poultry fillets with special spices and put them on the grill. At the same time, she put the kettle on and started cutting vegetables and cheese. Everything seemed to be going well, but then the smell of fried chicken began to spread in the kitchen, which was unbearable for the girl. Again, it happened again, only this time Archie didn't know it. When Catherine came out of the bathroom, her husband was still lounging in bed and the chicken was burnt. It wasn't until the smell of burning reached the bedroom that Archie realized he would only have coffee for breakfast. As he left the room, he saw his wife. The color of her face was whiter than snow. The blood vessels in her large eyes had burst. He realized that it was happening again. Archie began to shout throughout the apartment that Catherine needed hospitalization. The girl refused in every possible way and promised that if during the day it all happened again, she would go to the emergency station on her own. On the way to work, the question of what she managed to poison herself with did not leave Ekaterina's mind. The girl went through all the food she had consumed the day before, and she was sure of the freshness of all of them, even those used for cooking in the restaurant. She definitely had no complaints to the cooks and the owner of the establishment, but still, her condition was not improving in any way. She was still driving and felt that the nausea was slowly but surely coming up again. When she arrived at work, Catherine went to her office, where her colleague was already waiting for her. There were still 20 minutes left before the start of the working day, so the girls decided to drink some coffee to cheer up. They went to the kitchen, started the coffee machine, poured the drink into cups, and went out on the balcony. The co-worker chattered sweetly about how she'd spent the weekend, how many dates she'd been on, and what scumbags all the suitors for her heart had turned out to be. The girl's name was Lucy, and she and Ekaterina were complete opposites. And as they say, opposites attract. Catherine realized that she and Lucy have nothing to do. They have a different way of life, but for some reason she loved this girl. She had a life in her, even though she was 7 years older. When Lucy began to tell what she had eaten on a date at the cafe and named the dishes, The smell of it hit her nose, although no one in the neighborhood cooked it, that's for sure. The smell was so unbearable and unpleasant, the girl realized it was time to run to the bathroom. She was very embarrassed, as there were other girls in the room who were putting on their makeup to perfection and could hear what Catherine was doing in the stall. When she came out and looked at herself in the mirror, she was horrified. Mascara and eyeliner had leaked, foundation was smeared from the lower part of her face. One could not appear at the workplace in such a state. Catherine called Lucy and asked her to bring her makeup bag to the bathroom. A co-worker came running in just 2 minutes. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you? Lucy cried out when she saw Catherine's disfigured face. If I only knew, I don't know what's happening to me. I've been sick since last night. Archie thinks I'm poisoned after eating at that restaurant you recommended. No, you didn't. They're very particular about the storage and preparation of all their food. I can assure you, you're more likely to go wrong with freshness than they are. That's what I thought. Archie's been about to call me an ambulance 3 times now. I promised him this morning that if it happened again, I would personally go to the emergency station myself. And now I'm standing here wondering whether or not I should go. Listen, girlfriend, have you ever thought that you might be pregnant? No, Lucy, I can't be pregnant. Archie and I have been trying for 6 years, and it hasn't worked out, so I'm not even considering it. 6 years isn't that long. Some newlyweds manage to have their first kids 10, 15 years after they've been together. I'm pretty sure that's not us. Doctors gave up on us, said that only IVF can help us, and that they give 100% guarantees. We made an appointment with a reproductologist, but only for the next month. It turns out that now many couples have such a problem, so it is difficult to get through to a good doctor. Katia, let's do this. Now you go to the pharmacy and buy a pregnancy test, see that it's negative, and then you'll ask your boss to leave and go to the emergency station yourself. How's that sound? I love it. Look, I know a pregnancy test costs cents, but I don't want to take one so I don't get upset again. You have no idea how hard it's been for 6 years to see one damn line when we both dreamed of 2. Honey, I know it's been hard on you, but still, you are showing every sign of pregnancy right now. I'm sure you've never had one before, so it's time to take a test. Just be brave and just do it. You realize that when you go to the doctors, the first thing they will also check if you are pregnant or not, and here you'll just know everything yourself. At this moment, Catherine finished fixing her makeup. Lucy stood next to her, waiting for an answer to her proposal, but the girl decided not to answer anything. She was tired of telling and proving to people how hard it was for her. She couldn't answer herself why it was so hard for people to understand each other. Lucy realized that her colleague would rather die than go to the pharmacy for a pregnancy test. The girls headed to their workplaces. For the first hour, Catherine felt that soon everything could happen again. She put her makeup bag and wet wipes next to her. Lucy, who was sitting just a couple of meters away from her, noticed all this, silently stood up and left the office. The girl realized that Catherine had toxicosis, so she decided to go to the pharmacy and buy a pregnancy test herself. By the time Lucy returned, Catherine was no longer in the office. The girl went straight to the bathroom. When she went inside, she found that there was no one there. She was about to leave, but she heard barely audible moans from the far stall. Catherine, is that you? Are you here? Lucy asked, overwhelmed with excitement. Yes, barely audible, whispered Catherine. Lucy stepped back to the sinks so as not to embarrass her colleague. Catherine came out of the stall a few minutes later. There was a tired look on her face. Her makeup was sweating again and her eyes were red. Lucy felt awful. She didn't know how to help her friend. Catherine tried to pretend like everything was fine, squeezing out a strained smile. Okay, I don't want to hear anything. Just take this, head back to the stall, do what it says on the instructions, Lucy said in a demanding tone. What is it? Oh, you're at it again. How many times do I have to explain to you that this is a waste of time and money? I told you what? Take it and do it. At that moment, Lucy turned Catherine to face the booth, took her by the shoulders with both hands and gave her a little push so that her colleague took at least a few steps. Catherine realized that she would not be able to get away from her friend. It was easier to do what she said. Having done everything according to the instructions, the girl lowered the test strip to the specified line, waited for 2 minutes. Her gaze was staring at the wall. She did not want to look at the result, as it was obvious to her. When the time was up, Catherine took the test strip, left the booth and went to her friend. Here you go. Well, now you will leave me alone. Let's better think together what happened to me. I honestly don't have the energy to just run and burp. You understand that I have not eaten as much as it came out of me for these 2 days. Catherine held out the pregnancy test to Lucy. Her friend's eyes rounded sharply. Her mouth began to stretch in a wide, sincere smile. Her eyes filled with tears. The girl couldn't utter a word. After she took a couple of deep breaths, she was able to squeeze out, "Congratulations." On what? Catherine snatched the pregnancy test, turned it face up, and could not believe her eyes. There were 2 stripes. 2 stripes, which she dreamed of all 6 years of marriage. At first, Catherine was enveloped by a wave of euphoria, but then she quickly sank to the ground. The girl was sure that this is an ordinary industrial marriage. It's a mistake that happens by the thousands every day all over the country. The girl told Lucy she would be right there. She was gone for 5 minutes, during which time she managed to run to the pharmacy and buy 2 more tests from other pharmacological firms. Catherine repeated the manipulations, put the 2 tests on the countertop where the sinks were built in, waiting for the result to show up. It was the longest minute and a half of her life. Even though she had already accepted that getting pregnant naturally would not work for her, this moment was exciting for her. She couldn't watch for long and turned away. Lucy stood staring absent-mindedly at the 2 tests. At some point, Catherine was attacked by a friend who started crying and congratulating her. The girl turned to the sinks and saw that the 2 pregnancy tests were showing positive. Catherine could not believe her eyes. Was this really a reward for their efforts and patience for all 6 years? Did God really decide to give them the child they dreamed of so much? The girl almost immediately fell to her knees and began to sob. Her sobs were so loud that all the employees who were nearby ran to the bathroom. Everyone considered it their duty to inquire about what had happened. However, the girl could not give a single intelligible answer. There was a lump in her throat, and tears were pouring down. Lucy had to take the blame for everything. She decided that it is not yet possible to talk about the fact that Catherine is pregnant, so she invented a legend that said that her colleague has a migraine for the 3rd day, which drives her crazy. The firm's employees only sighed pitifully, some trying to offer advice that would help eliminate the migraine. Perhaps some of them were good, however, that was not what bothered Catherine at all. After 15 minutes, the girl managed to calm down. Lucy helped her get up from the floor, go to the sinks, and wash her face. After that, Catherine applied a light daytime makeup to her face, the kind of makeup that could not be spoiled even if the nausea suddenly came again. After that, the girl went to the boss, told about her well-being and her intention to visit the hospital, asked to give her time off. Up to the head at this point, rumors that the girl had been suffering with migraines for 3 days, so he immediately gave a positive answer without spending a single second on reflection. As soon as Catherine left the office, she immediately called a cab. For a few minutes, she pondered over what address to give. She wanted to head home to share the news with Archie as soon as possible, but her husband was at work, so she had a few hours to spare. Catherine decided it would be better to spend that time visiting a gynecologist who would give her a definite answer as to whether she was pregnant or not. It was close to lunchtime. There were no cars on the roads, so she managed to get to the clinic in 15 minutes. When Catherine entered, she was met by the administrator, who said that the doctor was already waiting for her. The girl thought that today was a happy day. Maybe she is pregnant, there are no traffic jams on the roads, there is no queue at the clinic. In the office, she was met by a smiling doctor who first of all found out why the girl decided to seek his help. Catherine explained that she had a suspicion that she was pregnant. She put 3 positive pregnancy tests on the table. At that point, the doctor invited her to the gynecological chair for an examination. Catherine's heart was pounding with an unknown force. She was worried as if it was her first time visiting a gynecologist. The examination took place in complete silence. Immediately afterwards, the doctor wrote the girl a referral for an ultrasound. "Why don't you give me your opinion first?" "No, I will give all comments after you bring me the ultrasound transcript." At that moment, the doctor got up from the table and led the girl into the ultrasound room. He entered first, approached the specialist, and whispered something in his ear. Catherine did not understand anything. She was afraid that the gynecologist saw some terrible disease, which he did not want to tell her. After the doctor left the office, the specialist offered the girl to take off all the clothes from the lower part of her body and lie down on the couch to begin the examination. The procedure took place in complete silence, and the doctor, just like the gynecologist, did not give any comments. After the examination, the specialist started typing something on his computer, which Catherine could not see. After the document was printed out, the girl went to the gynecologist's office. Catherine was trembling like an aspen leaf. In her head were only the most terrible thoughts, which did not give the opportunity to calm down. At this moment, she already regretted 1,000 times that she went to see the gynecologist. The doctor and the patient sat on opposite sides of the table in complete silence. The man was studying the transcript of the ultrasound. After a while, the doctor raised his eyes, looked at Catherine, and said with a smile, "Congratulations, you are pregnant. The term is 6 weeks." Catherine could not utter a word. Anxiety was instantly gone. Tears came to her eyes. They were tears of joy. She had never cried so hard in her life. She couldn't believe the doctor's words, so she snatched the transcript from him to see for herself that she was pregnant. While the girl was sobbing, the young doctor poured her a glass of cold water to calm her down. As soon as Catherine came to her senses, she thanked the gynecologist for the good news, took note of all the recommendations that were given to her, and went home in good spirits. This time she decided to walk so that she could stay as long as possible with this wonderful feeling of happiness. She wanted to shout to the world that she was pregnant. A smile was on her face, and passers-by looked at her with some excitement. Well, you bet. After all, none of them know that she got what she had dreamed of all her life, especially the last 6 years. On the way home, Catherine stopped by the store to buy all the necessary ingredients to prepare a gourmet holiday dinner. She wanted Archie to find out in a special atmosphere that they were going to have their long-awaited child. At least 2.5 hours the girl spun in the kitchen. 15 minutes before the arrival of her husband, the table was already set. It was only necessary to serve hot dishes, which were still in the oven, so as not to get cold. Archie always came at the same time, and this day it happened again. Catherine showed that it was possible to be a little upset. He justified the subject by saying that there had been a test at work that had left him with not a minute to spare. Archie noted that his wife was in a good mood. It pleased him, because lately she tried to hide all her emotions, the lion's share of which was taken up by worries. "Dare I ask why we're so cheerful?" "Honey, there's something I have to tell you. I hope it's not the news that you're leaving me?" Archie asked jokingly. "No, really. What's going on in your head? Sit down." On Archie's face appeared some excitement. It seemed to him as if something terrible had happened. However, Catherine's appearance said otherwise. If it was bad, she wouldn't be so cheerful and joyful. Nevertheless, Archie's heart began to beat at an accelerated rhythm, and his lungs felt as if they were short of air. "Archie, I'm pregnant. Katusha, I know how much you want this, but we've been trying for 6 years. We've never succeeded. Doctors say that women who want to have a baby badly sometimes have false symptoms that they mistake for pregnancy. Don't worry, baby. Soon we will go for IVF and become happy parents. Maybe not just 1 child, but 2 or 3. Honey, I'm really pregnant." At that moment, Catherine put 3 positive pregnancy tests on the table. Archie was somewhat confused. He didn't understand what was happening. At first, he wanted to jump up from his chair, grab his beloved, and twirl her in a dance. However, he subdued his ardor in time to say, "Catherine, surely they are all defective. Well, it cannot be that 6 years we have not had children, and now, when we signed up for IVF, you suddenly got pregnant." The girl assumed that everything would be just like that. Her husband would look for any excuse to convince Ekaterina that she was not pregnant. At that moment, the girl ran to the hallway, took her bag, brought it to the kitchen. Archie was still sitting and looking at her with an incomprehensible look. Then Catherine took out the transcript from the ultrasound and put it on the table. So that Sergei did not have any doubts. On top of it, she put another certificate from a gynecologist. When the husband read those cherished words, which they dreamed of for 6 years, his hands began to shake. It seemed as if his whole body was trembling. He was heartbroken. Tears came to his eyes, but he tried to hold on, as a man should not show his feelings. That's how Archie had been taught since he was a child. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to contain his emotions. He felt like a little boy as he began to cry of his heart's content, covering his face with his hands so his wife wouldn't see it. Catherine went down on her knees, wrapped her arms around her husband, and began to cry with him. It was probably the happiest day in their married life. While the spouses were trying to cope with their emotions, dinner had already cooled down. To be honest, no one needed it anymore. Immediately past hunger, fatigue, the body was filled with happiness and joy. The same day, Catherine and Archie began to discuss what should be bought first thing. whether it was necessary to tell the relatives about this wonderful news. In connection with the situation, the spouses became very superstitious, so they did not buy any things in advance. They told their parents about their pregnancy only after a month and a half. They were afraid that the pregnancy could cut off. Throughout the term, Catherine followed all the recommendations of the doctor. It was not difficult for her to do this, since for all 6 years she did not smoke, did not drink alcohol, adhered to a proper diet. She had already got used to living like this. At her appointments, the gynecologist said that she was not gaining much weight. He was worried that the girl was not eating enough to feed herself and the future child. During the entire pregnancy, Catherine gained only 10 kilograms. With each month, when the belly increased, Archie could not admire his wife. It seemed to him that there is no one more beautiful in this world. Ekaterina very well this state, on the face appeared small cheeks, which blushed so nicely when he piled her with compliments. Sergei was difficult only in one thing. He did not know how to explain to his wife how much he loves and adores her. And the world has not yet invented such words that could describe his feelings. Catherine understood all this and tried to any actions to show her husband that he is also very dear to her. When the girl was already 7 months pregnant, the couple decided that it was time to buy everything necessary for the baby. It was a pleasant hassle, although it took a lot of effort and time. They wanted their child to have only the best. The money for these needs had long been set aside. Archie wanted to buy such goods that would ease the everyday life of his beloved wife after the birth of the child. A month later, relatives began to bring gifts for the future parents from all over the region. There were a lot of clothes for babies, toys, developmental mats, even gave a stroller for growing up. All the clothes, diapers, appliances, pacifiers, potties were enough for a couple of years ahead. When Catherine was already 9 months pregnant, it became very difficult for her to walk. Sometimes her legs swelled. She could not cope with all the household chores. However, Archie was not angry with her. After work came and did what his beautiful wife did not have the strength to do. He guessed that to carry a child for 9 months is not an easy job, which takes a lot of energy, so he tried to always help Catherine. On September 15th, Archie went to work as usual. Catherine was still asleep. She was very tired lately. When she woke up, she went to the kitchen to make herself some tea and sandwiches. But at some point, she thought she had peed her pants. Looking at the floor beneath her, she noticed a small puddle. She felt so ashamed. At that moment, her mom called. Catherine was crying, but picked up the phone. The woman asked why her daughter was crying, thinking it was once again hormones kicking in. Ekaterina told about the situation, and her mom started nervously shouting into the tube that she was going to come to her now. Catherine didn't understand anything. The connection broke down. She just went to the bathroom to get a mop and clean the kitchen floor. 15 minutes later, someone rang the doorbell. The girl was alert. Since she wasn't expecting anyone, she had already forgotten that her mom had said she was coming. Looking through the peephole, the girl really saw a familiar face. When the door was open, the worried mother ran into the apartment. "Have you already packed your bags?" "Mom, what bags? What are you talking about?" "Dummy, did you pack a bag for the maternity ward?" "Why?" "Daughter, are you kidding me? You're in labor. You didn't pee. Your water broke. Catherine, you're about to go into labor." The girl was not ready to give birth. Catherine stood and sat down. Thank God, there was a stool under her. The mother realized that it was useless to expect a quick reaction from her daughter, so she decided to call her son-in-law and tell him about the situation. After hearing this, Archie also began to worry, but he was still thinking soberly. He sent that in the closet his already fully packed bag to the maternity hospital. All they had to do was to take it, pregnant Catherine, and go to the hospital. The woman did so, having previously called a cab. Ekaterina still couldn't come to her senses, and even when they arrived at the maternity hospital, she still didn't understand why. The doctors whomever said that this was a normal reaction for most expectant mothers. They knew how to work with such girls. Ekaterina was always under observation, and already an hour and a half after her arrival, she began to have contractions. At first, she thought the books and movies were lying about it being painful. However, after another 2 hours, she realized it was true. It seemed to her that she had never experienced such pain in her life. It was simply unbearable. But despite this, she held on, didn't scream, didn't demand anesthesia. The doctors were surprised by her courage, as they are used to patients who at the first contraction scream that they need to be anesthetized. In total, Catherine's labor lasted about 12 hours. Every laboring woman would envy her resilience and courage. After the labor was over, the girl said that she had a baby boy. Catherine and Archie purposely didn't find out the sex of the baby, so it would be a surprise. They bought all the furniture and things in neutral colors. After the baby was cut the umbilical cord, Wade, he was placed on the girl's stomach. The baby, unlike the mother, did not cry, lay quietly, and made some cute sounds. Tears flowed from Catherine's eyes. She could not believe that she had finally become a mom. The girl did not notice how she fell asleep. She was so tired that she did not remember how she was brought to the ward, what she dreamed. When Catherine opened her eyes, half a meter away from her, her son was sleeping. She gathered her strength, found a phone, called her husband via video link. None of their relatives knew that Catherine had already given birth. The girl immediately turned on the back camera and pointed it at her son. When Archie took the call, there was an image of a baby wrapped in diapers all over his screen. Archie immediately realized that his beloved wife had finally given birth. He could not utter a word, his emotions overwhelmed him. For a few minutes he was silent, smiling and just staring at the screen. To break this silence, Catherine told him that they had a son. The husband was very happy about this news. Frankly speaking, he would have been happy even if he had a daughter. He did not care what sex his long-awaited child was. It did not take long to decide on the name of the baby. The couple had long ago decided that if they had a son, they would name him in honor of his father Archie. Now their family has not only Catherine and Archie, but also Jack. 5 days after the birth, Catherine was discharged. The girl was welcomed by all their large and friendly family, which came from all over the region. The relatives ordered an animator in a polar bear costume, who met Catherine with a huge bunch of balloons. Archie gave his wife a huge bouquet of her favorite white roses. The nurse carried Jack out, headed over to his father to hand him his long-awaited son. Archie wanted very badly to take him in his arms, but the fear of hurting the baby was very great. After a few minutes, the man made up his mind and gently took the baby from the hands of the medical professional. It seemed to him that he could not even dream of such a thing. The relatives were delighted at how much Jack looked like Archie. Here, there was no need for a DNA test to be sure of paternity. The shape of the ears, as well as the birthmark on his left shoulder blade, best proved parentage. The relatives did not torture the young parents, walked them home and separated. When they got home, the couple changed the baby's clothes and put him in the crib. He was so cute and innocent that Catherine and Archie were ready to watch him for 24 hours. Both parents sat down in front of the crib, holding hands and looking, now and then, at each other and at their son. Thank God, Jack was born healthy, although many doctors warned young parents that with each passing year the risk of any abnormalities that would prevent the child from developing normally increased. Unlike many children, Jack had a strong immune system. During the first 2 years of his life, he fell ill only once, and then only slightly. Catherine detected the first symptoms in time and immediately started treatment. Due to this, Jack had recovered in 4 days. The child developed by leaps and bounds. It seemed as if yesterday he could not hold his head, and today he is already crawling all over the apartment and trying to open all the drawers and cabinets. The baby was very active. Catherine was not bored while she was on maternity leave. When Archie came back from work, he would give his wife some rest, and in the meantime he was busy with his son's development. They both wanted Jack to grow up to be a real man. From an early age, they had told him about how girls should be treated. They were sure that this information would only help him in the future and could not harm him in any way. Before Catherine knew it, her son was already going to the 1st grade. She and Archie were very worried that he would not be able to find friends because from early childhood he liked to walk and play alone or with his parents. However, their worries were in vain. Right after the first school day, their son told them that there are a lot of cool kids in his class, and some of them live in their yard. Catherine and Archie breathed a sigh of relief at that moment. Parents always want their child to be smart, so for a year and a half before school, Jack constantly attended preparatory classes. The teacher was pleasantly surprised when he found out that this boy was so well prepared that he was helping other kids to understand the topic. Jack liked to be a leader in the class, so he was always responsible for doing his homework. He liked it very much when teachers praised him in the presence of the whole class. The boy was often sent to city and district contests. Mostly, he returned with prize-winning places. Parents were very proud of their son. In the school on the honor board, on his picture, Jack smiled haughtily every time he passed by it. From year to year, the boy only improved his knowledge. Parents of classmates only wondered how this child has time to study well and walk with the guys and do any leisure activities. To be honest, Catherine and Archie were also surprised by his multitasking. When Jack was in the 7th grade, he attended 6 Olympiads of various scales. He had even participated in an English competition. This Olympiad turned out to be very meaningful for him as it was the first time he participated in a competition of this magnitude. However, after 2 weeks the school received the results, which said that Jack got the first place among the students of the 7th grade. The principal of the school was delighted, as such students only raised the status of her school. The parents were happy until Jack entered the 11th grade. This school year turned out to be fatal for him, if I may say so. The young man got mixed up with a bad crowd. At some point he felt that his life is not filled with those bright colors, which usually boasted his classmates. So when 3 emotional guys joined the company, he realized this was his chance to stand out. The guys turned out to be a lot of fun, hanging around the city all day long looking for adventure. At some point they invited Jack along. The young man was almost immediately ready to give a positive answer, but remembered that he had to go to class. So skip school. What's the problem? One of the boys asked. How can I skip school? Because the teacher will call my parents right away. Are you 5 years old that you are so afraid of your parents? What will they do to you? Well, they'll yell for 15 minutes and then they'll calm down. Mine also yelled at first, even tried to hit me with a belt, but after a few months they accepted my lifestyle. Jack didn't want to get in trouble, so he agreed to this adventure right away. He knew his parents. He was sure that they would not scandalize for too long. The next day the young man left the house as usual, but headed not to the school, but behind the garages, where he agreed to meet the guys. When he arrived at his destination, everyone was already there. He was surprised to see that the boys had beer. How they had bought it was unclear to him. The boys immediately poured the drink into a glass and handed it to Jack. Previously, the young man had never consumed alcoholic beverages, but now he needed to do it to earn the respect of these guys. Yes, such stupid thoughts sometimes creep into the heads of teenagers. Jack himself didn't realize how time had managed to fly by so quickly. It was already dark outside and his head was groggy, because it wasn't the only glass of beer he'd had all day. The foamy drink kept coming from somewhere and never ran out. The young man did not want to be different from other guys, so he never refused a new portion. Only later he realized that it was a big mistake. He was so drunk that he could not get to the house on his own, although they were located only 300 meters away from him. The older guys helped him to the apartment, rang the doorbell, and ran away. Jack stayed in the hallway, standing leaning against the wall. The front door opened almost instantly, and on the doorstep stood a furious mother. The woman immediately realized that her son was drunk. She didn't know what to do with him, so she called for Archie. The husband quickly picked up Jack under the arms and led him into the house. The young man didn't remember anything else. When he woke up in the morning, there was breakfast on the table. His parents were already at work. He liked that no one told him off, even though he didn't remember much. Perhaps in his mind, he'd been scandalized as early as last night, but from the looks of it, if breakfast was on the table, then his parents weren't too offended. In principle, Jack was fine with that. When he picked up his phone, he saw 3 missed calls from Tony, who was the leader of his new company. After calling him back, they asked each other how things were going and agreed to meet again. Initially, Jack wanted to go to school, but he thought it was useless, as he had not prepared his homework. He didn't want to be embarrassed in front of everyone, so he headed back behind the garages to spend time with his new company. This went on for 2 months. Jack practically did not attend school. Catherine and Archie listened to daily discontent from teachers and the principal. At first, they tried to justify their son's actions that he was sick. The couple even wanted to buy a certificate from the children's polyclinic to justify their son's absences. It was almost impossible to talk to Jack, as the young man constantly returned in an inadequate state. Most of all, parents were afraid that their son would get addicted to illegal substances, but they were spared. Only on weekends, the parents could have a normal conversation with their son. They tried to find out from him what was going on in his life and how he explained his actions. However, all the conversations did not bear any fruit. Jack did not go to the contact. The child changed dramatically and refused not only to talk about his life with his parents, but even to say hello to them. It was not surprising, because in his new company, none of the guys did not respect their parents. They only talked about the fact that they only take away their freedom, forcing them to do what adults want. At some point, it seemed to Jack that the guys were right. He too wanted to put his parents in their place. He was sure that they were exploiting him and that his best years were passing him by. It was only later on in time that the young man realized how stupid that sounded. How I've never been more stressed out than I was during those 2 months. It seemed to her and her husband that they had taken all possible measures, but they had brought no result. Nothing could help them. They were even going to make an appointment for their child to see a therapist, but they didn't know how to break the news to Jack. They were sure that their son would take it negatively. While the parents were thinking about how to bring the child back to normal life, Jack realized that he had made a big mistake. At some point, when the young man was walking with a new company, Tony suggested that they go on a case. Jack didn't understand what it was about, and the leader of the company said he would explain everything on the spot. When they arrived at a small grocery store that was already closed, Tony said they should rob it. Jack, of course, wanted to be the bad guy, but he wasn't about to break the law. At some point it came to him that he had messed with the wrong company. These guys were only dragging him down. His classmates and the other teenagers around him were afraid of him. He didn't like the new state of affairs. The young man refused to participate in this scam, turned around and headed home. However, Tony caught up with him and pushed him in the back. When Jack fell, he suddenly ran up to him, turned him over, and began to beat him in the face with his fists, saying that there was not a single guy in their company who had ever refused Vlad any of his instructions. Jack tried to fight back, but he couldn't. Passing people helped. When Tony noticed that 2 men were coming at them, he was frightened and ran away. Jack was helped up and walked to his house. The young man stood in the driveway for about 20 minutes. He couldn't dare to go inside. He was afraid he would break his parents' heart. Jack hoped his parents had already gone to bed. He realized the chances of that were too slim, as his parents were always worried about him, waiting up and not going to bed. Only on rare occasions did mom and dad fall asleep. There had only been 2 or 3 of those situations in the entire period. Turning the key in the keyhole, the young man carefully opened the door. The apartment was dark and quiet. As he closed the door, he noticed a shadow pass by him. Jack was frightened and barely audible shrieked. Catherine and Archie came out of the bedroom. "Oh my God, my boy, what is it?" Mom saw her son's face disfigured. His lip and nose were smashed. A huge blue-purple bag formed over his eye from the hematoma. Her hands reached for Jack's face, but she couldn't dare touch him lest she hurt him. "Jack, who did this?" said the father in a frightened voice. The man was so dumbfounded that he couldn't figure out what he should do or how to help his son. "Mom, Dad, don't worry. It's all right. Nothing good. Treat Catherine to the ambulance quickly." The parents picked up their son by the hands, loaded him into the car, and drove him to the ambulance station. Doctors carefully examined the boy, prescribed treatment. The parents thought that their son would have to stay in the hospital, but it was not necessary as no concussion was detected. All the way back home, everyone was silent. Archie and Catherine didn't know what to do. They really wanted to scold their son, but they felt sorry for him. Jack was ashamed. As soon as they got home and entered the apartment, Jack started crying. "Sonny, what's wrong? Where does it hurt?" Rushed Catherine to her son, wrapping her arms around him. "Jack, what happened?" "Please forgive me," barely audible pronounced the young man. "I do not know what happened to me. I just wanted to be the best in all areas. I wanted to be feared and respected. I met Tony and his company and they accepted me. I had my first taste of alcohol with them. I didn't like it, but I drank to be like everyone else. And today Tony told me I should rob a store. I may have been stupid for getting involved with him, but not stupid enough to go over the law. I didn't need to. I had big plans for the future. I said no, and he jumped me. Don't think I'm weak. I gave him a couple of good punches too. I just didn't know what to do. I'm sorry for everything. I promise I won't let you down again." Catherine and Archie had no choice but to forgive him because he was their long-awaited son. Jack promised to take up his mind, catch up on his studies, and please his parents only with good news. The boy kept his promise. For a week he was on sick leave for his injuries, and when the bruises started to go away, Jack went to school. Classmates, teachers, and the principal were shocked by the appearance of the high school student. Teachers and administrators called parents, talking about the child coming in inappropriate behavior. Some of them thought it was the parents' doing, which is why they kept him out of school for so long. Thank God that incident was managed. The parents talked to the principal and told her what had happened to their son. This had to be done so that the school would not give a signal to the child welfare authorities. In addition, Jack was going to be expelled from school for long absences. Catherine and Archie managed to persuade the authorities that their son had gotten his head together and would not miss classes without a good reason from now on. Jack tried his best to fill the gaps in his knowledge. At school and at home, he was constantly immersed in textbooks. With oral subjects, everything turned out to be much easier. Familiarizing himself with the missed paragraphs, he quickly memorized all the information. The practical sciences were more difficult. Jack had to figure out the rules and solve problems on his own. In principle, at some point he managed to reach the same level of performance that he had before, but math did not lend itself to his efforts. The young man simply did not understand some topics. Mathematics is an important subject, as it is a discipline in which you have to pass a compulsory exam. Over the years, the exam only gets more difficult, and God only knows what will happen this year. It took Jack a long time to get over the fact that he couldn't manage to pull out an A in math. It used to be his favorite subject, and just a few months of his carefree life could undermine his grades so much. The young man tried, but he couldn't do it. Jack realized he needed his parents' help. His birthday was approaching, and his parents often wondered what to get him for his coming of age. "Mom, Dad, I'm very sorry to you, and although I'd already apologized, I'd like to do it again. Please forgive me for getting on your nerves. I promised that I would please you. I've been working very hard, and I've gotten excellent grades in all my classes. Well, almost all of them. I'll be honest, I can't seem to make up the math. The exam is coming up, and I'm afraid I might fail it. No, of course, I will not write for a D, but you know very well that for me a B is a bad grade, and I'm still not up to an A. Son, we are very pleased that you are sincere with us, but frankly speaking, we with the Father do not understand very well what you are going to do. You want to ask for our help? We'd be happy to give it to you, but just tell us exactly what kind of help you need." "Yes, Mom, you got that right. I'd like to ask you to hire me a tutor, if we have the money for that." The family had money, of course. Catherine and Archie knew that it was expensive to support a child, especially a child who was eager to learn and try to be better than others. The parents set aside money every month. Although up to the 11th grade Jack did without a tutor, there was no guarantee that at some point he may not be needed, so the savings of parents came in handy. That evening, Catherine called Jack and suggested that he start choosing a tutor. The son was a little confused at first. He did not understand how to choose a teacher, on what criteria, but his mother said that she would read him the merits of the applicant, and the son will say whether the tutor is suitable for him or not. On the first evening, it was impossible to stop on a choice, as the majority of applicants were students of physics and mathematics faculty of Pedagogical University. The guys did not have any outstanding merits, so it was useless to hope that they would be able to pull Jack on excellent on EXAMEN. The next day at lunchtime, Catherine noticed that there was a new questionnaire on the site. At first she was upset, as the applicant was no more than 24 years old. She was in her last year of study at the physics department. The woman nevertheless went to her page to familiarize herself with her resume. The girl had attached copies of certificates stating that she had won prizes in the Math Olympiad throughout her studies. This was a huge advantage over the other applicants. That evening, Catherine showed the application form to Jack. "Mom, don't you think she's too young? She's only 6 years older than me." "Son, I thought so too, but look at her certificates. You realize that as a student, she's always entering some kind of math contest, and she's won awards in every one of them. It means that she knows her business, and she entered the pedagogical school not because she couldn't get anywhere else, but because she wanted to." "Yeah, you're right. Too bad there's no picture of her. She's probably a nerd with glasses." Jack burst out laughing. "Well, you know, she's not a nerd, but she can really help you," his mother replied in a stern tone. Jack agreed with his mother. Catherine called and arranged a trial lesson for the next evening. It was explained to the girl that she was to prepare the guy for the EXAM so that it would be done on excellent. This did not frighten her. On the contrary, she said it was no problem. At 7 o'clock the next evening, the door of Catherine and Serioja's apartment rang. Looking through the peephole, Jack's mom saw a pretty girl and opened the door. "Hello, can I help you?" "Catherine?" "Good evening. My name is Maria. We agreed to meet with you tonight." "Nice to meet you, Maria. I think you're wrong. I had an appointment with a tutor, and I don't know how I can help you." "Well, it's me. It was you who agreed with me," Maria said with a smile on her face. Catherine was surprised. In fact, She and Jack expected to see a simpleton in stereotypical glasses, but a completely different person came. The girl was very beautiful. Brown big eyes perfectly matched with hair the color of wheat, which fell neat curls on her shoulders, plump lips, slightly upturned nose. Maria's figure was chiseled. She was dressed in a classic style, but nevertheless, it did not help to hide her sexuality, but rather emphasized it. On her even put a bag, still a beauty will remain. Catherine even thought that the girl was lying about her achievements, as most applicants did in their resumes. At that moment, Jack came into the hallway. "Mom, who's there?" "Oh, hello," said hello confusedly to Jack. "Yes, here you go. Jack, this is the tutor you and I picked out for you yesterday." "Oh, wow. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that you didn't have a picture in your profiles of your mom and I had a slightly different picture of you. You know, I purposely don't put a picture on my profile because a lot of parents don't take me seriously. For some reason, they think that if I wear makeup, dress stylishly, and don't wear glasses, I can't have a great knowledge of math. I hope you won't be too mad at me for hiding my appearance. It's just that, really, I could use the extra money. I'm willing to give you a free trial lesson. Give me a chance." "Oh, come on, Maria. We'll pay you for the trial anyway. I'll be honest, if you posted your photo, I wouldn't have chosen you. We're stereotypical, aren't we?" "Well, maybe it's better that way. Come into the room. Jack will be right with you." A wide smile appeared on Maria's face. She thanked God that these people had given her a chance to prove herself. She really needed money now. As her laptop had broken, she had to buy a new one on credit. And the monthly payment, as they say, won't pay for itself. Catherine suspected Jack and whispered quietly in his ear, "You know, I still have a vague doubt. Jack, you're not a stupid boy. Try to drive her on the most difficult topics in which you are well versed. Make it look like you don't know anything about it." "I will, sir," replied Jack, like a soldier saluting his mother. The lesson lasted a little over an hour. All that time, Catherine sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, trying to hear what was going on in her son's room. The doors were not tightly closed, so the woman sometimes heard small laughs. It made her tense, as this tutor was supposed to give her son new knowledge, not tell jokes. Soon Jack and Maria left the room. On the face of the young tutor, it was obvious that she was worried, because the young man now has to give his verdict. However, Catherine decided to talk to Jack alone, having previously escorted Maria out. "Maria, here is the amount as for a full lesson, although you said that for a trial charge only 50%. If you don't mind, I'll talk to my son tonight, and then I'll call you back and tell you whether we agreed to your services or not," said the mother of a high school student in a confident tone, like a strict teacher, holding out an envelope to the girl. "Yes, of course, I will wait for the call. You can call at any time. I will be late today to prepare for a colloquium on mathematical analysis. Goodbye, bye." Jack opened the door for the girl, into which she flew out like a bird. Catherine stood waiting for her son to tell her how the class went. "Mom, don't worry. Auntie cool." "Jack, what kind of manners? What kind of aunt is she to you? I'm interested in your description of her as a professional." "All right, I'm sorry. She's really smart. I told her I was having trouble with differential equations, but she snaps them like a seed. I've never met anyone who can solve them as fast. I picked the hardest example, and it took her no more than 5 minutes to find the answer." "Well, that's certainly a plus. What else can you tell me?" "Well, then I started her on my real problems. Integrals, you know, are just awful, and especially the ones in part C of the EXAM. I took my variant book and asked her to solve one example from part C together. And you know, she did it very quickly. At first, I thought that her solution looked too easy, and she was wrong. But when I checked her final answer with the answer written at the end of the book, they were completely identical. So, what do you say, son? Will you study with her? Will she be able to prepare you for the exam?" "Absolutely. Don't even worry about it. Every penny you invested will pay off." A sincere smile appeared on Catherine's face. She was glad that in such a short time they managed to find a tutor for Jack. Yes, the girl was very young, however, age is not an indicator of intelligence. Literally in an hour, Catherine called Maria back and told her that they were ready to work with her. She offered her to train with Jack 3 times a week. At the other end of the line, it was heard that Maria was very happy about the offer. She could earn enough money just for their family and not have to look for any more students. The next class was scheduled for 2 days later. Maria was always on time. To be honest, she mostly came much earlier, just standing under their driveway and waiting for the appointed time to approach. Maria didn't like to be late, but showing up early was a sign of bad manners. Archie was also happy that their family's life was back on track. Jack had been replaced. His son behaved well, didn't skip classes, and brought good grades, or rather excellent grades. Jack and Maria's lessons began to pay off. At a parent-teacher meeting, the math teacher noted the young man's progress. The teacher thought that he was preparing for the exam on his own. Catherine only nodded her head affirmatively at her words. The fact is that Jack asked his mother not to tell anyone that he was studying with a tutor. The teenager was ashamed to tell about the fact that he could not cope on his own. "Son, I'm so glad things are getting better for you. You're doing great." "Mommy, it's all because of you. If you hadn't been able to get me a tutor, I wouldn't have been able to catch up so well. You know, we're very lucky to have found Maria." "Well, what kind of Maria is she to you?" "Don't get familiar. I hope you behave appropriately when you're in class with her." Yes. "Well, Maria is a very competent specialist. I don't understand why she's going to work in a school with her knowledge. She should go into science. Maybe we'll meet her at a research center someday." "Okay, stop dreaming. You'll have it all. You just have to do your best." "Yeah. Mom, do we have any more money?" "What do you mean?" "I don't understand. I think it would be good to increase the number of classes. It would help to build my knowledge and confidence. I mean, in the sense that I'd be convinced that I could pass the exam without a problem." "Jack, I think you've already made great progress with your tutoring sessions. I think you need more rest. But if you really think you need it, I might suggest adding one weekend tutoring session. It's not that we don't have the money. We have the money, as they say, but spare your body." "Mom, that's so good. You realize that when I start solving part C of the exam without any problems, then Maria will be able to tell me a few topics from the university program. That'll be great. And when I get in, I'll be the smartest one in the class." "Of course, I believe in you, son. As long as we can, we'll help you." Jack was filled with joy. He couldn't explain what was happening to him. Catherine didn't understand what was wrong with her child. Why is he so happy that he will have less free time? The mother realized that she had a special child. He was different from everyone else. While everyone else's mind was on partying, Jack was working on his books, except for those few months when he got involved with a bad company. Catherine was glad her child had been born that way. Her son gave no cause for worry. However, the woman was worried that her child would not be able to socialize at university. But if he is as eager to gain knowledge, then he will not really need buddies. It seemed to Catherine that now she was the happiest woman on the planet. At first, Jack's mother did not trust the young tutor at all. She was worried that Maria would want to seduce her husband. Archie over the years has only become more beautiful, so Catherine and worried. Although she was confident in him as a spouse, she continued to carefully look after herself so that the years did not take their toll. However, over time, such thoughts from her head completely disappeared, as Archie was seeing that he has no business with this young girl, especially since they met very rarely. The thing was that Jack's math classes were held mostly when his parents were at work. This suited the mother, as she could completely relax after work, knowing that there are no strangers in the house. To Catherine and Archie's surprise, their son started leaving the house, not to school, not to the library, but just outside. Jack said he was a little tired lately, so he wanted to go for a walk. A couple times, his parents heard him making appointments with someone. "See, and you said he didn't have any friends," Archie said quietly, taking a few sips of coffee. "Yeah, it's weird. I was sure he didn't even have anyone to talk to about school. And now he's going out with someone." "Ah, Archie, what if he's got a girlfriend?" "I don't understand why you're saying that with such trepidation. It's wonderful. God forbid he does have a girlfriend." "What are you saying? Do you realize this is one of the hardest times for him? Preparing for admission requires a lot of time and concentration. Mother, you're so hard to understand. That's why he's always sitting at home, then constantly cramming textbooks, and now you're not satisfied with the fact that he is with someone to communicate. Catherine, our son is 18 years old. At his age, many guys have already met with 10 girls, and ours has not had one. You too, by the time you were 18, you tried 10 women? Catherine, do not start. You know what I'm talking about. Thank God that our son likes women, because, you know, in my head began to creep into my head not very good thoughts. Stop it. We need to find out who he's hanging out with. We have to find out, you know. No, I don't understand. Catherine was furious that her husband does not care what happens to their son. Well, at least that's what she thought. How could Archie not realize that if Jack really fell in love with some girl, he would stop studying again, fail the exam, and not get into university? Of course, Catherine was dramatizing in her thoughts. Even if Jack stopped studying right now, he would still pass the exams. Yes, not on the highest score, but on the lower limit of excellent would pull out. But neither Jack nor his mother would consider it a total failure. Archie had always had a much simpler attitude. He didn't understand why he had to try to be better than anyone else. What was the ultimate goal? If Jack's dream was science, he would just study and enjoy himself. He would do well. But in his father's opinion, when a man tries to be just better than others, he satisfies his ambition. Archie was saddened by Jack's lack of ambition for anything. The son is constantly lost and can't decide on his future profession. Archie tried to talk to his child, but Jack constantly freaked out and said that he would figure out his life on his own. That's why his father was glad that his son had at least someone, no matter if it was a friend or a girl. Jack only at the age of 18 made the first step towards life, not existence. Mom, Dad, can I have some money, please? How much do you need, Jack? Dad asked. Yes, and tell me, please, where are you going? Who are you going with? Mother asked. All right, I'm going to answer in order. Dad, I'd like a couple of $12. Mom, I'm an adult. Do I have to answer to you? Son, I realize you're an adult, but you're still our child. We're always worried about you. If you told us where you're going and who you're with, we feel a lot better. Well, my classmates asked me to go to the movies. I decided not to fight them off because graduation is coming up and we might not see each other again. I can't say I'm upset about it, but I'm not a robot. I've been with them for 11 years. Archie took $50 out of his wallet and handed it to his son. Jack was pleasantly surprised that he'd gotten a little more money than he'd asked for. The boy immediately rushed to his room, began to pack, and after 15 minutes said goodbye of his parents and ran away. Catherine stood near the window, watching where her son was going. I'm telling you, he went out with a girl? Why are you so convinced of that? Didn't you smell the scent on him? Honey, if that's the case, don't rub it in your son's face. Let it rest. You're just making yourself feel bad that he's going to drop out. But there's been a period of time like this before. There was. But if you remember, he didn't date a girl. He joined a group of thugs. As you can see, not always friendship with guys leads to good. Catherine defiantly turned away. She was offended that her own husband does not understand her. She always tried to do everything for the good of their family, but it seemed to her that her favorite men do not appreciate it. The woman stood at the window all evening waiting for Jack's return. It seemed to her that time was dragging slowly. Archie tried several times to distract her from this stupid situation, but her spouse was constantly angry and yelled at him. Then the man decided, no matter what he did, he would still be guilty and stupid. Around 11 o'clock at night, the front door lock turned. It was Jack. Catherine could not understand how she missed him if she was always standing by the window. The young man entered the apartment. He looked happy. His eyes were shining. The smile never left his face. Oh my God, Mom, you scared me. Why are you standing there in the dark? I'm just waiting for you to come back, son. I've been waiting so long that it's already dark, and I didn't want to leave the window. Mammy, don't start. I'm not late. It's not even 11 o'clock. Where were you? What were you doing? Catherine asked, crossing her arms on her chest. Well, I told you that went to the movies with the class. After that, we went to a cafe and then just walked in the park. Is that why you're so happy? You think seeing my classmates should be painful for me? No. What movie did you see? Yeah, it was a horror movie. You don't even remember the title. Honestly, I don't remember. Is that it? Is the interrogation over? Can I go now? A furious grimace appeared on Catherine's face. Jack turned around and went to his room. Catherine did not want to be alone with her feelings, so she went to the living room, where Archie was. The woman began to express her suspicions to her husband, but he did not want to listen to it. Only said that all her doubts are written with forks on the water. Catherine freaked out and went to the bathroom, turned on the water and began to cry. She was offended that everyone spit on her feelings. Time passed. Jack began to go out more often. He was constantly coming up with a plan of activities for the evening that would satisfy his mother. However, the woman was always nervous when the young man returned from a walk, asked a lot of questions. Such a dialogue always ended in a quarrel. Catherine was worried that because of her son's zeal for walks, they were distancing themselves from each other. When she'd offered her son to spend time with the family, he replied that he was very tired that day. No matter how much the mother did not beat herself up, you have to give Jack credit. His grades at school were still at the highest level. He attended it constantly and without absences. This was accurate information because Catherine has not once called the principal and asked about her son's progress. Once Catherine managed to leave work a little early. The woman decided to spend this time with the benefit of trying to get closer to her son. Recently, relations between them were, to put it mildly, strained. Catherine went to a restaurant near their house, bought Jack's favorite pizza, nuggets, fries, combo set of rolls. These were all her son's favorites. His mother wanted to placate him into being more outspoken. With her bags full, the woman took the stairs, as she didn't want to wait for the elevator, and entered the apartment. On the threshold in the hallway, Catherine noticed a pair of women's elegant shoes. For a moment she froze, but then remembered that at this time her son has a math class with Maria. Looking at her watch, it was clear that the girl would be leaving their house in 15 minutes. Catherine decided that just during this time she will have time to set the table, and after the lesson with the tutor, Jack will be able to fully relax in the company of his mother. The woman fluttered like a butterfly around the kitchen, arranging plates, glasses, and cutlery. When everything was ready, she realized that 30 minutes had passed, but Maria had not left yet. It was not to say that Catherine did not want to pay for the extra time. She really felt sorry for her son, because he was always studying and preparing for exams, and only recently started to go out for walks. She wanted to go to her son's room and stop studying. Well, how much to torture the child? He's already prepared enough. Frankly speaking, the mother no longer saw the point in these lessons, since Jack was already cracking the problems from Part C like peanuts. Catherine decided to give a little more time for the lessons. What if they were studying the difficult problem? Time passed, but nothing changed. In the kitchen, the lunch that Catherine had bought especially for Jack was already cold. The woman was getting angry because she had other plans for the evening. She decided to listen to what they were talking about. Getting as close to the door as possible, Catherine stopped and began to listen. There was no conversation going on behind the closed door. She thought that was very strange. Catherine walked up close, put her ear to the door. Silence. Nothing was happening in Jack's room. In the woman's mind, the thoughts could not gather in one pile. She didn't understand what was going on. Why were Maria and Jack's shoes in the hallway and the room was silent? Everything looked like they weren't home, but that was impossible. At this moment, Catherine decided on a desperate step. She felt that she was obliged now to enter Jack's room unannounced. The woman had never allowed herself such a thing, but now she saw no other way out of the situation. Things had gone too far. She was having the darkest thoughts, up to and including the fact that Maria had killed her son. Yes, it sounds delusional, but what would not come to a mother's mind in such a situation? With shaking hands, Catherine reached for the doorknob. Grasping it, she froze. The woman decided to listen one last time to hear what was going on in Jack's room. But nothing was changing. Then Mother took a deep breath and exhaled sharply, pulling the door toward her. When a small gap formed, Catherine decided to peek through it. After what she saw, she wanted to fall over. Jack's room really didn't have any extra math classes going on. Yes, Jack and Maria were also present, but the manner in which they appeared before their mother was beyond anyone's explanation. To the left in the corner stood her son's large bed. It was usually made, but not tonight. On it lay Jack, and beside him Maria, who had thrown her arm and leg over him. Their nakedness was partially covered by a blanket. Catherine couldn't move. She didn't know what to do now. The woman thought that fate had laughed at her, for she thought that Maria would be able to seduce her husband, but she was more attracted to her son. The young people did not sleep. They just lay in silence, occasionally whispering about something. At some point, Jack raised his head to adjust the pillow beneath it and saw that his door was ajar and a woman's eyes were looking into the gap. He recognized them at once. With a sudden movement, the young man covered Maria completely with the blanket. Fury played in his eyes. "How long are we going to stand there and watch?" Jack shouted sharply. Maria at this moment frightened into the blanket with her head. "Do not worry, I will now completely deal with a calm voice," said the young man. Jack got up, threw on his house robe and headed towards the door. It was only at that moment that Catherine realized she was caught. She felt terribly ashamed of herself for peeking at her son. Abruptly, the woman threw herself into a run. Running had to be not far. She headed for the kitchen. Catherine realized that now there would be a scandal. She knew that she was guilty. At some point, she was already thinking of a speech in which she would justify herself. But then she managed to remember that the tutor she had hired for her son had seduced him. It didn't matter that Jack was 18 years old. What mattered was that it was a woman who took money for lessons and instead engaged in inappropriate behavior with a young boy. Mom, I don't get it. What's going on? Do you feel okay with peeping on me and my girlfriend? Jack, what girlfriend? What are you talking about? I paid that flirty girl to tutor you in math. And what's the bottom line? So I paid her money to make you happy in bed. You're a smart, good-looking guy. Can't you find yourself some young girl to fulfill your physiological needs? So I hired you a prostitute? Don't you dare say that. Yes, you hired Maria to tutor me in math. Mom, that's what happened. You can see for yourself that I'm doing much better. But that's life. We happen to fall in love with each other. Who did you fall in love with? She's too old for you. Jesus, you're only 18 years old. Why do you need a girl like that? You can tell she's going to spread her legs at the first opportunity. If it was love between you two, she'd say the class is over and stop charging us. As it is, she kept taking money from us, not doing her job, but only pleasing you. If I had told you that I was in love with Maria, you would have scandalized me immediately. I didn't want to bear it. It was my idea to leave things as they were, and it would have lasted until I passed my exams. After that, I'd leave to go to college and Maria would transfer from hers, and then we'd be happy. I wouldn't have cared what you and Dad thought. By the way, Dad might have supported me, but he's very dependent on your opinion, and you won't believe this, but he knows that Maria and I are in a relationship. He met us by chance when we were hugging and kissing. Dad also knew how you'd react, so he decided not to tell you. Wow, what kind of family are we? What kind of family do we have here? What does betrayal have to do with it, Mom? You're the one who refuses to accept situations as they are. Everything around you should satisfy you completely, and you don't care if someone else doesn't like your opinion. All right, get your girl out of my house right now. This house is yours as much as it is mine. So please let Marie go and don't open your mouth. I'm sorry to talk to you like this, but it's the only way you understand right now. Stay in the kitchen and don't come out. At that moment, Jack left the kitchen and closed the door. The last thing he wanted right now was for his mom to make a scene in front of Maria. Yes, the girl had already heard everything, but at least it hadn't been said in her presence or to her face. When Jack entered his room, Maria was already standing in front of him dressed, her purse and textbooks in her hands. The girl's head was down. Jack stepped close to her, gently took hold of her chin, lifted her head and found that there were tears in her eyes. The young man's heart clenched. He felt very uncomfortable that his beloved had to hear all the things his mother had said. Gently, he hugged Maria and pressed her against him. The girl could not hold back any longer and began to cry to the point of tears. My dear, please don't cry. Everything will be all right. I promise that everything will be exactly as you and I dreamed. In a month, we'll have exams and then we'll move. You and I are both sure that I will get a budgetary department, so start doing what we talked about. Transferring to another school is not a quick process. Jack, we're not gonna be happy. We can't enjoy life with your parents being so negative about me. You can't protect me all the time, and at some point, you're gonna give in to their pressure, and you're gonna start complaining to me too. Why did you tell your mother that you didn't give me all the money that was meant for my classes and that it was left in your jewelry box? Maria, I will tell her, but not today. It's going to be a difficult period. We have to get through this month. The money in the box is for us because after the move, we won't have any income. This money will be enough for 3 months. Well, please tell her that. I think I'd better stay out of her sight. I don't even know how I'm gonna get out of your house right now. Don't worry about that. I told Mom to stay in the kitchen and not come out. I've locked the door there, so we can safely go to the exit now. I'll walk you out. No, please don't walk me out. Look, this is a very difficult situation, and if you come with me now, it'll only make it worse. I'll just leave your apartment and you go to your mother and try to talk to her calmly about it. These things need to be handled in an adult manner, Jack. You don't have to make a scene. You just have to convince them that we have a right to be happy. I hope we'll see you at least in the park. I can't be without you until you get here. It's too hard. I knew it would be like this. I knew we'd get caught sooner or later. Your father actually saw us a week after we started dating. I wonder why my mom only noticed us now. Because she's always at work, and there's nothing surprising about that. I was pretty sure she'd never catch us. Come on, I'll walk you to the door at least. Jack took Maria's hand and led her into the hallway. They didn't speak, so as not to make Catherine nervous. The girl put on her shoes, hugged and kissed her lover, and quietly left. Jack remained standing in the hallway. He realized that as soon as he crossed the threshold of the kitchen, a tremendous scandal would fall upon him. No matter how the young man acted, he would still be wrong. At this time, Catherine sat in the kitchen, clenching her fists to the point of pain so that the nails dug into the palms of her hands. She didn't understand where she had missed raising her son, why he could do such a terrible thing to her. She had a very different idea of Jack's first love. In her mind, it was a young girl, probably underage. Yes, her son was an adult. He had some needs that could not be gotten from young girls. And if he could, it would be prosecuted. At that moment, she decided that Jack was very rational. He'd probably been thinking of a plan to seduce Maria for a long time. After all, in her opinion, there was no better candidate than this girl, because she was a frivolous student who wanted to get as much money as possible. It was probably Jack who had suggested this scheme to her. Catherine thought about the fact that Maria probably didn't have any aptitude in the exact sciences, and it was made up on purpose. Jack walked into the kitchen. Catherine raised her eyes to him. Initially, it seemed to the young man that his mother was crying, but looking closer, he saw that she wasn't. The woman sat silent. She was afraid to start a conversation, so as not to go straight into a scream. Jack didn't know what to say, or rather, where to begin the conversation. But despite this, he decided to be the first to break the silence. Mom, for Christ's sake, please don't start yelling. I'm so sick of your scandals that sometimes I want to leave home. I don't understand. You think I'm creating an unfavorable aura in our house? Well, go on. Go away. Mother hasn't done anything good for you, has she? I'm just here as a servant. Look at them, they don't live well with me. And you ask me if I live well with you, with people who don't care about me. Jesus, but I told you not to start. Why do you always do what's convenient for you? Let's talk calmly. Okay, let's talk calmly. Go ahead. Mom, in my short life, I've never met a girl I wanted to be with. When we were choosing a tutor for me, I really needed one. Yeah, I know you didn't like Maria very much at first, but I swear she's the best tutor I've ever met. She's a real math pro. She actually prepared me for the SATs, and you can see from my progress, she did very well, to say the least. Yes, I realize she's older than me, but that's not a huge age difference to make a big deal out of. You just have to understand that it happened. At some point, I realized I was in love with her. If you're thinking she seduced me, you're dead wrong. I made the first move. Don't lie. Please don't lie to me. I raised you so well. How could you do this? No, I don't believe it. I'm pretty sure she was the one who started showing you attention, and you couldn't say no because of your needs. Anyway, I don't want to continue this conversation. I can close my eyes and pretend it never happened, but then you'll have to stop talking to this Maria. Mom, it's already decided. I don't know how long these feelings will last. Maybe they'll end in a few months. Maybe they'll last a lifetime. I feel good now, I'm not giving her up, no matter what it takes. What if I told you you'd lose all your allowance? I don't care. I'll go to work. Jack, what job? You've got a big future ahead of you, and for that to happen, you've got to study. That's the most important thing you have to do right now, okay? And this worthless relationship with that girl isn't gonna get you anywhere good. Jack realized his mother was impossible to change his mother's mind. Even his father couldn't help in this situation. The young man did not know what to say, so he just spread his hands apart and shrugged his shoulders. Catherine thought that she had succeeded in getting her way. At that moment, she was rejoicing in her heart and did not even suspect that she was very much mistaken. Jack left the kitchen and headed for his room. Throughout the evening, he did not leave it. His parents thought that the young man was worried, thinking about what decision to make. Catherine behaved calmly enough, as she was sure that her son would make a decision in her favor. Archie, on the contrary, was worried. The father knew what feelings Jack had for Maria. He had seen the look in his eyes that he was looking at his lover. The man knew that his son was going through one of the most difficult times in his life. He wanted to help, but he was powerless. Over the years of married life, Archie had lost his authority in the family and his wife had taken over. Jack sat on his bed all evening, never letting go of the phone. At first, it bothered him that Maria didn't write to him. In general, when the lovers parted, they were always in touch. But this time everything turned out quite differently. The young man knew that his girlfriend had heard what she should not have heard. Marie did not need to know how his mother felt about her, because she was building a relationship not with her, but with her son. About an hour and a half Jack waited for messages from the girl, but only system notifications came to the phone. After a while, the young man sent Marie several messages with emoticons. The girl responded to them instantly, which is why Jack realized that Maria was also sitting, without letting the phone out of her hands, waiting. Jack thought for a long time about what he should do. More than anything, he wanted to leave home, but what really mattered to him was his future education. Without his parents, he wouldn't be able to achieve what he aspired to. The young man once again talked to his lover about a plan that would lead them to a happy future together. They both approved it. Jack thought for a long time about what he should do. More than anything, he wanted to leave home, but what really mattered to him was his future education. Without his parents, he wouldn't be able to achieve what he aspired to. The young man once again talked to his lover about a plan that would lead them to a happy future together. They both approved it. The first days after the incident, Catherine spent with a certain sense of anxiety. She worried that her son would make the wrong decision. For several days, the mother kept a close eye on Jack, observing his behavior, looking at what notifications came to his phone when he wasn't around. Everything was clear. After about a week, the woman calmed down. She was convinced her life was back to normal. In her opinion, Jack had been acting a little strange. She expected a different reaction, but the young man was quite calm, did not contradict his parents, in general, behaved as if nothing had happened. However, this arrangement suited the mother, but Archie felt that something would happen. The man was right. The son was exemplary until he passed the last exam. About 4 days later, the results came. The young man sent his documents to several universities in which he wanted to enter. A week later, the list of applicants who were enrolled on the budget form of education appeared. Of course, among them was Jack. The young man was very happy. The first thing he did was to call Maria. He wanted the girl to be the first to know about it. Recently, they had not seen each other often, so as not to make his mother nervous. From this day forward, however, things would have to change. After Jack talked to Maria, he sent a message to the family chat in which he reported that he entered the university he dreamed of. To Catherine, this was wonderful news. It was exactly what her son wanted after all. She loved him more than life and wanted to make this day memorable for him forever. The woman excused herself from work to go home and prepare a sumptuous holiday dinner. Recently, Catherine did not often spoil her household with home-cooked food. She worked hard so that her family did not need anything, and when she came home, she simply did not have the energy to cook, at least the usual chicken broth with noodles. But this time it was to be different. The woman went to the store and bought everything she needed. This day she wanted to pamper not only her son, but also her husband, to whom she paid too little attention. Lately, she and Archie lived just as neighbors. Catherine had a desire to show him that she still loved him as much as she did. When she got home, she started cooking. It took all evening. And when everything was ready, Archie returned from work. The man was simply speechless when he saw what kind of table Catherine managed to set for such a minimal amount of time. The only thing left to do was to wait for her son. Catherine was beginning to worry because she did not understand where he could disappear all this time. She decided to call him, but the subscriber was out of range. With every hour, the mother's condition worsened. Catherine could not find a place for herself. Her heartbeat increased. Archie tried to talk to her and calm her down, but all his attempts were in vain. The woman was not in contact. Her thoughts were confused. Her speech was incoherent. Her husband was about to call an ambulance because at this rate and go crazy. However, the man decided to go into his son's room. Maybe there will be clues where he could have gone. Archie's intuition did not fail. Jack's room was the place to head to right away, as his parents had failed to call him. The room was tidy. It was obvious that the young man had tried, for he had never had it so neat. There were always books scattered everywhere, but not today. A desk stood near the large window. His father barely noticed the white envelope lying on it. Archie realized that nothing good would be in it. That's what they do when they're about to leave. The man stood motionless, afraid to touch the envelope. It was necessary to make up his mind, but it was so difficult. After all, this information had to be presented to Catherine so that she would not go completely off the rails. When Archie opened the envelope, he found a letter inside. Even though he knew its contents, he decided to familiarize himself with it anyway. Hello, parents. You've probably already discovered that I'm not at home and realized that I've left it for good. I could have left in silence, but I decided to explain myself a bit. As you already know, I entered the university I dreamed of. It's in a regional city. That's why I'm moving there. I want to say thank you very much for raising me to be a man and putting a lot of work to make me so smart. Unfortunately, you are not ready to accept the fact that I am a person and I have feelings, so I have to leave my father's house. Mom, that money you gave for tutoring, Maria didn't take after we started dating. It's been in a box in my room all this time. But don't look for it. I took them with me so we'd have something to live on for a while. You know, I kind of feel like a thief, so I just want to say I'll pay you back as soon as I get a job or win a grant. I won't be in touch for a while. You need time to calm down. I think we can meet up and talk before the school year starts, if you'd be willing to accept me and my fiancé. You're Jack. Yes, it turned out just as Archie had thought it would. He realized that Catherine needed to be told the whole truth, but he didn't know how to do it properly so that she would react more calmly. The man decided to act radically. He dialed 911 on his cell phone and called for an ambulance. To the dispatcher, Archie told him that his spouse had had a nervous breakdown. In fact, that's what happened. Archie walked out to his wife with a letter in his hand. He decided that it would be better if she read it all by herself, rather than him choosing his words carefully so as not to bring his spouse much pain. With shaking hands, the woman took up the letter and began to read it. With every second, more tears came to her eyes, and by the end, the woman became hysterical. She cried and screamed as she lay on the couch. Archie quickly brought a carafe of water, but the wife refused to drink. After 10 minutes, the ambulance arrived, which saw Catherine in all her glory. Doctors immediately diagnosed a nervous breakdown. They said that it could be treated either at home or in hospital, warning that the attacks could come at any time. Archie agreed to have Catherine admitted to the hospital. He decided to go with her so she wouldn't be scared when she came to her senses and realized she was in the hospital. Catherine was treated for about 2 months, 2 weeks in the hospital and the rest of the time at home. Jack during this time never once got in touch, although Archie found several ways to talk to him, but the young man blocked him on all social networks. Jack showed up only on winter vacation after the session. Catherine was already feeling much better and, as if, had resigned herself to the fact that she would never see her son again. Therefore, the appearance of Jack threw her into shock. The meeting was ridiculous. No one rushed with a warm embrace. Everyone just did not know how to behave. Catherine prepared dinner, and they gathered the whole family in the kitchen. That's when Jack told how he had been living all this time.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.